Oh, what's up, y'all? Welcome to another beautiful, sweaty, outdoor
Clouds are moving fast.
FreeChinaPod.
Moving real fast.
Yeah, they are, which is surprising because there's like no wind here.
Well, it's probably like 1,000 meters above us.
Well, that's probably true. Got him.
Mosquito?
Yep.
Gross.
You want him?
Now give him the ghosts of the fish.
Yeah. Yeah, that our neighbor murdered. Monster. How's it going, bud?
It's okay. Not a happy camper, but you know, what are us normal people to do? In the world we live in.
Oh, gotta just grit your teeth and bear it, I suppose. Oh,
The prisoner's anthem.
speaking of, did you see that the Chinese national anthem got banned on Weibo?
No?
At least a line from it. Because people in Shanghai were saying part of it is like, stand up, all you who don't want to be slaves. And people were saying that in Shanghai in regards to like their now like month-long lockdown.
I feel like it's hilarious though. Of course, what the Chinese government is doing in Shanghai is way over the top. But I think it's hilarious that people who excuse Chinese behavior 99.999% of the time are all suddenly like, oh my gosh, look what China's doing. As soon as it comes to like COVID lockdowns, which they gladly embraced 2 years ago, and now that they decided that the global economy should open up again, they're like, this is fucking tyrannical and the Chinese government has to go.
It's because it's all about money.
Yeah, clearly.
It's
But
all-
they're like
Yeah.
the same news sites who are like, stop criticizing China. And when it comes to COVID, they're like, fuck China.
Yeah. Yep. Because now it affects their bank accounts, their
Yeah.
investment portfolios. So
Yeah, because they can't visit their fucking slave factories there to see why production has dropped.
yeah.
I saw Bloomberg today. Before, they kept being like, China, even though China's enforcing these strict lockdowns, the cases keep going up. So after the cases started dropping, now they're like, even though China's strict lockdowns, the deaths are going up. Because the deaths always lag the case numbers going up. But the case numbers, so far as I can tell, are going down in Shanghai because of the extremely strict lockdown.
They were going up for a long time. They just started going down.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course. They
You
were.
can get control of the virus if your government cares, if the world cares.
Well, yeah, countries have done it, including Taiwan.
But this
Taiwan,
is
we
just
did it last year.
This is just a discourse the world doesn't want to have. Because I've been seeing articles that they're like, we're going to be living with COVID forever in one form or another. It's like that. It wasn't a given. And we never had that like collective discussion over whether we wanted that to be the case.
Yeah.
We
Well,
just kind of let it happen.
Well, I mean, the elites let it happen. The people that like run everything.
I suppose. But
I mean,
but I don't remember like average people like protesting being like, governments do something, like governments close the borders. People just didn't seem to care. And everyone wants to have their autonomy for their own personal life, but they don't want to take any responsibility when the government makes these horrible decisions.
Personal responsibility. Well, I mean, for one part of it though is, I mean, people have been saying it. Opinion polls show that most people want at least somewhat stricter measures.
Yeah.
But also people who are scared of COVID probably aren't going to get in big groups and go march around because they're scared of COVID.
I totally agree. But I mean, there's a lot of different ways to voice your opinion rather than doing absolutely nothing, which is what most of those people. And I've seen.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about that because they were calling themselves like a silent majority or something like that. Because they are a majority and they are totally fucking silent. If you read any news site, if you listen to any elite, I don't hear anyone being like,
Well,
we need to increase mask
those are the
mandates.
elites, though. That's what I'm saying is that average people are. I mean, I've seen numerous like city halls, things like town meetings and stuff where people are going and saying, hey, we need to be masking in schools, we need blah blah blah, whatever, fill in your policy of choice. So I feel like people are making their voices known, but the elites just don't give a shit.
That's partially true. What I think is also very interesting is, we both watch the elites through the media and stuff like that. I would say the right and left media on this, I don't know if that's the proper term, whatever, the liberal conservative media, both sides, all the spectrum of the media elites in America are all in favor of the same thing here. And you would think the left is kind of unified in being accepting of this kind of drop. But actually, they said it's an extremely sharp split, the partisan split. So like Democrats, whatever that means,
Right.
it's like 78 to 13 or something like that in favor of keeping the mask mandates. Republicans, it's not. It's a lot different, but I think they still have a majority. I think it's like 48-34 or something like that. Still in favor, actually.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, all the I've seen a couple nonpartisan polls where it's the vast majority are in favor of either reinstituting mask mandates or like or allowing people to mask, because like some people are like, we need to like ban people masking.
what the fuck?
Like if I can't see their nose, it makes me sick.
Well, it's that whole idea about like, oh, it's damaging children's brains to wear a mask because they don't get to see people's faces, which is preposterous. And obviously,
Let's start banning bangs. And start banning pants too. It disturbs my psyche if I can't see other people's genitals when I'm talking to them.
yeah, exactly. So it's so
just
ridiculous.
Snowflakes, man.
Well, yes. I mean, that's true. I mean, like DeSantis telling children to take off their masks, and
People who have already caught COVID seem to have like some fucking brain warp. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them. Like I was listening to Bill Maher and Joe Rogan the other day.
God.
Holy shit, it was a ridiculous pod. They got really high and they started spewing a lot of nonsense. But basically, they were complaining about how people are anxious about COVID. It's like not everyone is like you and has caught COVID and doesn't have any issues. Like people have family members that have died.
Yeah.
People don't want to catch some weird. You guys, those two believe in the lab leak theory, okay? Which is still a theory. Let's be honest. And there's still there's no discussion over people being like, I'm not sure if I want my genes to be modified by a fucking infectious virus that was created in a laboratory in China.
Right. Well, the other thing is that those two are also hyper wealthy elites that if they want to stay away from COVID, if they want to get tests, et cetera, they can do all that.
I mean, I'm sure you've heard the pod. Like Joe Rogan had a fucking PCR test in his like studio for 2 years, and he tested everyone with PCR before the fucking podcast.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah.
He's like, Jamie's got the thickest bands, everyone.
Oh yeah, I'm always talking about who's got those thick ropey lines. Yeah.
And the other guy, Bill Maher, is like, I have a personal assistant on staff, and her only job is to do medical research for me. It's like, what the fuck? You're not a normal human being. You don't understand normal people.
No,
you're a fucking like privileged ivory tower elite, like talking down to the rest of us. Like we can understand your psychotic rant, like post-COVID brain damage rant. Like
Bill Maher has been a brain disease on the left or whatever in liberal media for a long time. He lost his mind a while ago, and
why do you say that? I don't ever follow him, so I don't know much about him.
I only hear him every once in a while when someone's covering some idiotic shit he says. So to be fair, I'm a bit biased, but he was like basically telling people to like, I think 2016 really broke his brain. He was just telling everyone to shut up and vote for Hillary, and like the Bernie people to stop complaining, and just a lot of nonsense, just a lot of elitist shit.
2016 broke his brain.
I think that's true. I think 2016 broke a lot of people's brains, to be honest, and COVID has done the same.
Yeah.
People just lose their minds. And I was going to say about your point in terms of like once you've had COVID, people like wear that like a badge of honor. And then also they just like...
I've got natural immunity, guys.
Exactly. And also it's just like pretty much like...
Getting an alpha vaccine means it doesn't have any effect whatsoever against Omicron. Is that what you're going to say?
No, what I was going to say is that it's like a lot of things with medicines, like just because you got it and like didn't have that, again, you're also an elite, so you got like the best medical experimental treatments that you could get, but average people don't deal with that. And in addition to that, there are people that just have different experiences with different viruses. Like if I get it, it's going to be different from other people. So it's just idiotic.
It's just like the flu, guys.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it was.
Yeah, they're both professional performers, so let's be honest. Like, they don't have real 40-hour-a-week jobs. They don't have the stress. Like, maybe Bill Maher has to, like, get on an airplane occasionally, but let's be honest.
Private jet, but I'm sure that guy has privates, or at least is flying first class everywhere, and thus doesn't have to see the plebs.
He's a really ranty guy.
Oh, I really strongly dislike
from one ranty guy to another.
I mean, I like ranting too, but he's just like the epitome of elitist thought on the Democratic side. He's like a Democratic elite, and I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I don't know what Joe Rogan would be. An MMA elite. I looked at his podcast. That's the only thing. I was like, okay, maybe he's got some interesting conversations. There's like 25 MMAs in a row, and then 25 stand-up comics, and then like one right-wing tech CEO, and then it just repeats.
I just look on there like every once in a while, and the last one I listened to is Ben Burgess.
Who's that again?
I think he writes for Jacobin, which I sometimes like some of the stuff written for Jacobin, but it's yeah, lately with the Russia stuff, they've been saying some pretty dumb shit, so I haven't been reading them as much. I think he's pretty good. I mean, obviously there's a number of things I disagree with him on, but he was the last one I listened to because it was actually like
probably a long time ago. I don't even see it.
It was like months ago. I feel like maybe 2 months
ago. Protect
Our
Parks. I like how Protect Our Parks is also all stand-up comedians.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how many. First of all, he doesn't want to have people that are like going to challenge him too much, I feel like, anymore. And also, a lot of people probably don't want to go on his podcast and get smeared as like.
I don't know if people are afraid of getting smeared. I think it's just like you can only have such. I feel like the conversations are getting shallower and shallower, like as
they're very repetitive.
Yeah, like I agree. He used to have really deep conversations, and he still does. I haven't heard one in a while. Let's be honest.
I haven't been listening to him a lot, so.
It seems like a lot of the conversations he's had recently, and I'll also be honest, I don't listen to the MMA or stand-up ones because I feel like they have nothing to fucking add to my life. Like listening to two people who are also fucking elites. I mean, I'm not an elite, sorry. Two people who are elites and out of touch and like really aren't. I don't want to say they're not experts on any subject other than like making people laugh. Like that's great, but I don't listen to podcasts to laugh. Sorry.
I do sometimes, but I generally don't listen to his to laugh.
If I laugh at a podcast, it's because what they said is so offensively fucking stupid I can't help myself.
Or if you listen to ours, because we're also comedic geniuses. But
every time I hear something on like The Economist being like,
now that we have the vaccines and COVID is no longer an issue,
I just laugh out loud and then shut it off.
Speaking of elites, yeah, I listened to that. You recommended that one episode about country music, and that's the only time I listened to it.
The Economist is okay. It's better than Bloomberg. Their podcast. It's way better than Bloomberg.
I don't listen to Bloomberg either.
Bloomberg is terrible. Their podcasts are atrocious. I love their news, but their podcasts are bad.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty elitist, but I do like to read them from time to time. But
their news is, I would say, it's a weird mix. It's a weird mix.
Yeah, as with a lot of news sites.
And a lot of it, you don't have to like. You don't have to read the American politics stuff because they cover a lot of interesting international shit that you don't always get covered in. Like if you go to MSN or you go to an American politics website, you just would never hear about a lot of this shit.
Yeah. I mean, American news is pretty America-centric.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
It's insular.
Yeah.
CFR is good for that too. I love CFR. I get their emails and I almost never read them, but when I do, I'm usually because lately it's all Russia. It's all stuff that I've already heard.
Right.
Normally there's like they'll have a weird thing in there, like talk about some some coup in some country that I rarely hear about.
Right. Yeah, I also get their emails and I occasionally scroll through them.
They're good.
They're pretty good. Yeah. I would tend to agree with that.
Throw it in there. Speaking of, I was thinking of Solomon Islands. Solomon Islands is throwing a big heat. I wrote an article about that. They had, I think the United States is, I don't remember who it was. I think it was someone from the National Security Council visited there after the Australian Asia minister went there, basically, because they signed that agreement already.
Right.
And that's not good. And basically everyone's warning them, like, if you put a base there, it's going to be bad.
Problematic. Yeah, that wouldn't be a good thing.
I don't know what the United States can do to intervene other than... Yeah, I really don't know how they can effectively retaliate.
Sanctions, I think, is about all they could do.
Well, they're going to get... I mean, now, basically, this fucking unelected prime minister... I shouldn't say unelected. He's elected by, like, the legislature, but he's not directly elected by the people. He's basically going to turn the country fully Chinese dependent so that, like, they don't have any choice in the future. I think that was always his intention, and then slowly become a fucking dictator. This is increasingly what it looks like, since he almost got pushed out of power last year. Only by the grace of the Australian government rescuing him is he still alive right now.
Well,
and he's like, Australia, fuck you.
Yeah.
And then signs a fucking military accord with China.
Well,
which is why the riot started in the first place, by the way, because his people fucking hate the PRC.
He'll be protected now by his little garrison of Chinese bodyguards.
But that's the point then. Then, like, nobody in there wants the Chinese except for him, and he's going to use the Chinese to suppress his own fucking people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
This is like a really bad situation.
It certainly doesn't look good.
CIA hit time. Just kidding.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's possible that there are increased riots. It depends kind of what comes out of it.
Well, now nobody's rioted since then because they're fucking terrified now of the Chinese military coming in and basically razing the capital to the ground.
Yeah.
Because he has no support in the capital. Like, the Solomon Islands have multiple ethnic groups. He's got his own little ethnic group that he's doing very well for with Chinese money on his island. The capital city, Honiara, and the majority ethnic group fucking hate him and fucking hate China. And I don't think he or the Chinese would have a problem literally just committing genocide and just wiping them off the face of the earth.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know either.
That would be pretty extreme. But
it would be extreme, but it literally just happened like 3-4 months ago in Kazakhstan, where basically the people wanted the leader to go, and then a foreign country intervened, sent in their military, killed all the protesters and arrested everyone else, and the country went back to normal, and now he's an established dictator again. So it's not unheard of.
Yeah.
It's not even like hasn't happened in a long time. There's an immediately recent precedent for that taking place.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it's. I mean, people just like I don't know if they have the bandwidth to like pay attention to all this stuff, and they just don't. Whether that's the reason or not, they just aren't paying attention.
You mean people in Solomon Islands?
I mean people all over the world. In Solomon Islands, of course, I'm sure they're paying attention to it, but like you said, they're scared of being murdered.
Yeah,
so.
The fact that the entire reason they rioted was over increasing Chinese influence after the switch from Taiwan to the PRC, right? Yeah. That was literally the reason for the rioting. And then he signs a peace agreement and there's nothing. It's because of that fear. I would speculate. There's no way to know that for sure. But why else wouldn't they riot?
Yeah.
Why else wouldn't they try and remove him from power? For fuck's sake, for like increasing ties with the country that they hate so much.
Well, hopefully it can be resolved through a democratic process. In the next election, maybe they'll get rid of the legislators that voted for him, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. Especially if he's able to like gerrymander. I'm not an expert on the politics of the Solomon Islands, but the fact that their leader, who has so much power, is not directly elected is also problematic.
Yeah, of course. Well, we'll see what they do. Hopefully get a nice little push for that. A little more.
It's not what it sounded like you were going to say.
Push for democratization.
I mean, they are a democracy.
I know, but I mean more direct democracy.
I'm always in favor of that.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah.
Is there a cat on the roof?
Sounds like it, but it could be a rat too.
It's
a bird.
Oh, is it?
It's a mourning dove.
There were 2 cats on 2 different roofs here last night. There was one on this shack, and then there's one on this tin roof over here.
Cat on a hot tin roof. Have you ever read that book?
No.
Tennessee Walker.
But that is like that is a good like southern phrase.
He's watching me. He or she, I don't know.
Yeah, don't misgender the bird, Ari.
Bird's gender doesn't matter anyways.
Well, they do poop and pee out of the same orifice, so it may be fair. Also, birds don't exist. What else is happening, bub?
Do you have anything? I got a couple here.
I just wrote an article about the increasing media talking about TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, for anyone listening that doesn't know.
Oh yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, so I saw on Global Times first, and then I also saw on TVBS. But when I was looking, there's a number of other articles just popping up, basically saying that I don't know if it's coming directly from people or if the call is from these like TCM doctors.
Probably.
That's what I would guess too. But they basically are claiming
Get your TCM Pfizers.
get your tiger dick soup. They're basically saying that they have evidence, using scare quotes, that they have these like teas and tinctures that they have that they said reduce like the binding of Omicron by 70 to 80%.
Really?
It's just, I mean, it's obviously nonsense, but like it also,
I know nothing about that.
it also makes sense because, I mean, with the government increasingly kind of taking its hands off the wheel, like people are going to turn to like whatever they feel like can help them. I mean, it's almost, and we'll see how this plays out and how big it gets, but it's almost, I think it could be like a direct parallel to a certain deworming medication that got very popular in the United States last year.
You're talking about the opioids, right?
That's right. I'm talking about Purdue
If you do enough
Pharma's.
OxyContin, you won't have any worms.
That's
Your bowels will be stuck in your body for weeks.
It's true. Also, if you take enough, the viruses can't grow because you'll die. So that also is an option,
Well, that's
though
not what I
not
meant.
one that I would encourage. But yeah, so we'll see how big it gets. But I was actually talking with a Taiwanese guy yesterday who was also talking about like going to the. He's vaccinated, but he was also talking about going to the doctor to check out some TCM solutions.
I was thinking about getting the Novavax sooner or later, but we'll see. We'll see how things go.
Well, they just who was it? Was it the Pfizer's? Somebody just came out with a new vaccine that they're doing trials on now.
Moderna.
Is it Moderna?
Yeah. You're talking about like a multi-strain one.
Yeah. I mean, they're all obviously working on them because they need upgraded. I mean, obviously it makes sense.
Upgraded profits.
It makes sense with the variants. Of course, you need to upgrade the vaccine or update the vaccine. But yeah, also of course it's profit driven because this is what happens when you put profit incentives on medicine.
Yeah. So let me go off on my rant that I've been doing to everybody lately.
Hell yeah, let's hear it. Get ranty, bud.
So I'm sure everyone knows that Regeneron and the Eli Lilly monoclonal drugs were pulled from the market by the FDA because they didn't show efficacy against Omicron. Okay, so the Pfizer, and I will grant that Pfizer's is not a monoclonal. Pfizer's is an antiviral drug, which has different mechanisms, but they didn't really give any justification in this.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did they approve it, and so the NIH willingly admits. Let me read you the quote because I wrote a beautiful article about this. I'll read you. I have a screen capture from the NIH's website to basically show exactly how clear the contradiction is between what the government says about the safety and efficacy of this medication and what Joe Biden says about this medication.
Joe Biden. I just saw
Joe Science Biden.
I saw Joe Biden apparently recently just said, side tangent, that the Philippines is essentially a dictatorship on par with China and Russia. Which was a quote. That's a quote.
That's a really sloppy thing to say.
He's been slopping it up a little bit lately, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's certainly not something I would have said.
Okay, so the antiviral drug is called Paxlovid. So here's the quote. This is directly from the NIH's website. Ritonavir boosted nirmatrelvir is expected to be active against the B11529 Omicron variant of concern, although there is currently a lack of data on the clinical efficacy. So basically, they're saying there's no data on
Right.
or at least a lack of data on the clinical efficacy against this variant of concern, against Omicron. So there's no data. Okay, number one. Number two, because of the potential for significant drug-drug interactions with concomitant medications, this regimen may not be a safe choice for all patients. So guess what Joe Biden did? I mean, we talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you know how this drug is not proven to work and it's dangerous for people to take with other drugs, so they should definitely check with their doctor. We're going to make it so that people can get an unlimited supply of the drug with no prescription at any participating pharmacy across the United States. So basically, you come up there with a positive self-COVID test. You get, with no doctor's prescription, a 5-day dose of this unproven medication, subsidized by the fucking government,
Hell
at
yeah.
any clinical pharmacy against the country. 5 days of doses. Okay? So I don't know how the distribution of the medication works, but so far as I know, if there's no pharmacy on staff, the pharmacy tech has to check whether you have any contraindications. So it's now a pharmacy tech's responsibility, not a doctor, and give you the medication. That's, again, not proven to work and now subsidized by the government.
Sick.
And of course this is within like 6 weeks of them pulling all the competitor drugs to this from the market for not being proved to work against Omicron. So if you don't think that there's a little bit of a cloud of suspicion raised on why the government basically does anything that Pfizer wants, like buying an unlimited supply of the drugs, because they have to keep them in stock, right?
Right.
It's just like the vaccines. They're still keeping them in stock, even though how many Americans are getting vaccinated right now? Probably close to zero.
Probably very few.
You don't think every single vaccine station still keeps these like 2-week shelf life vaccines in massive stockpiles there, just in case? So we're just continuously buying an endless supply of these worthless fucking drugs from this company, subsidized by government money.
Heck yeah, bud.
So that's my rant. Pfizer's doing something weird. Pfizer's hypnotized the world, as Elon Omar said.
I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise. They literally pay bribes.
Do they? Pfizer? Are you talking about lobbying?
I'm talking about lobbying and also campaign donations. I would call them bribes. Of course, we should use the real word, which is campaign donations. But
yeah, but don't you think Eli Lilly also does? Don't you think like
I think
Regeneron also did?
I think all of them probably do, but I don't.
Pfizer had
maybe
the best
they,
offer.
Maybe they give the most money.
Anthony Science Fauci can count his bribes better than anyone else.
He is good at counting money. It seems, allegedly.
I use dead dog fetuses to count my money.
Yeah, he has the dogs count his money before he feeds their faces to bugs while they're still alive after slashing their vocal cords. But I would know nothing about that.
How is that guy collecting a government salary still, by the way? Jesus Christ.
Wow.
You lie to the American people. You're like,
Promotion time.
Well, I think that's what gets rewarded nowadays, right? Is you
well, usually if you get caught, you get some kind of punishment.
Well, I don't
Well,
know.
Anthony Fauci
I don't
is
think
science.
has it been proven that he's taking any
I'm not talking about bribes. I'm talking about lying. You get caught lying, embarrassing yourself.
Dude, there's been so many. All politicians are liars.
Unelected, appointed politicians by their former opposition party leader. You'd think. They'd be like, maybe we should probably think about keeping this guy on staff. They're like, nope.
Well, they don't want.
He's got the best voice.
They don't want to. They don't want to break American people's trust in science.
Fredo.
Well, Fredo is gone. He did get fired. All those CNN people are kind of out now.
I thought you were talking about Anthony Scaramucci.
Scaramucci. No, I'm talking about Cuomo.
Omarosa.
Cuomo and his crime family.
The Cuomo crime family.
Glad they're finally fucking out.
They'll be back. Everyone gets rehabilitated now.
If Trump comes back, they'll definitely come back.
Well, barring his
Trump v. Bernie 2024.
I hope so.
2 80-year-olds.
I hope so, bud.
But it will be like, you know what I learned in the past 4 years is that Pfizer is a fantastic corporation, and we should all invest in as much Pfizer stock as possible.
The good thing is he doesn't take those bribes, so hopefully he won't. But we'll see.
You don't know what happens in 4 years' time, man.
At least people won't have to pay for any sort of medications under his
because
system.
Bernie Sanders will subsidize Pfizer to the tune of $1 trillion a day.
Medicare for all.
Pfizer Medicare for all.
Yeah.
Pfizer Care for all.
Medicare for all, sponsored by Pfizer.
You can only visit a Pfizer-approved doctor and take Pfizer-approved medications for it to be approved for government subsidies.
Under my current administration,
That's much better than me.
Pfizer, it's always in your network. Everyone's covered under the Pfizer network. Yeah.
I can see that as the American Medicare for all is like a single fucking private healthcare corporation just like taking over, being like the preferred provider of choice.
Yeah.
I'm throwing your accent off.
Your 40% of your paycheck goes directly to Pfizer now.
I mean, it does anyways.
Wow, that's kind of true. That's kind of true.
How much? What did we spend? Like $1 billion or something? A billion doses. So $30 billion buying doses of Pfizer vaccines, like for the rest of the world, which Which, by the way, the rest of the world is still complaining they don't have any doses. So
More fucking Pfizer's needed.
Yeah. Thankfully, some places are getting their like own homegrown stuff, but still not even close to enough. And a lot of people, because of the way the media works, are like worried about the efficacy of their own vaccines. Like Taiwanese people with Medigen, like people are like, oh, it doesn't work. Like when I was talking to people about getting it.
oh, you should hear about Pfizer, folks.
They're like, why do you want to get that? Don't you want your Terry Guo B&T vaccine?
Let me say two things I forgot to say about Pfizer. This is maybe why Biden gave them this great news that he's going to buy an unlimited supply of their drug. Number one, I think I was talking to Ben about this. So they had that study recently where they gave it. Let's be honest, it was a slightly lower dose, but they tested it on children, and what they found is that the efficacy in preventing symptomatic infection against 11 to 15-year-olds at the approved dose is fucking 11%.
Hell yeah.
And the efficacy at preventing hospitalization was 48%, which is essentially like placebo levels and not high enough to get it passed, which is why I believe they have to go through the testing again, the testing process, because they failed. And by the way, the media turned that around. They're like,
Guess how effective the Pfizer's are. You're twice as likely to be hospitalized.
like they just twist it totally. Like 48% efficacy is fucking abhorrent, but technically, yes, you're twice as likely to be hospitalized if you consider it in that very crude metric. I mean, you could say the same thing about being obese, but God forbid they say that. So basically, they twisted it. Instead of saying yes, they failed their FDA examinations because their vaccine is so ineffective, they just twisted it. That's one of the great piece of news is they got from I think the study was conducted by the New York Department of Health. So this was from the U.S. government, by the way. The second one was another study. There was a raft of hepatitis that was linked to Pfizer cases recently. So there was another study that basically showed, as far as I know, it's in vitro. It wasn't in like a live human, but basically they showed that the RNA vaccines, despite all the promises that they made that they will not introduce foreign DNA into the human genome, that was a lie. They are capable, especially in liver cells, they are capable of introducing basically COVID viral proteins into human liver cells, which then get expressed, which is now hypothesized to be why those cases of what do you call it? I just spaced on the word. I just said it.
Hepatitis.
Hepatitis can be sparked is because basically the liver will start naturally producing Pfizer viral proteins, which the immune system will then attack. So you have a whole bunch of viral proteins covering your liver, so your immune system just eats your liver to shit. So these are two great pieces of news for Pfizer in the last, now it's about 3 weeks, in the last 3-4 weeks, let's say. And so they needed a win from Biden.
Well, and also, I mean, the media is not going to cover it.
No, I haven't heard anybody talking about either of those two. Those were really high level studies. I think one of them was out of Cell, and the other one, was published by the New York Department of Health. So through the fucking U.S. government, I guess. Well, state government, but was it through Cell? I think it was through Cell. Anyways, that was atrocious. I mean, this is really bad news.
Well, the good thing is the American people won't hear about it, and everyone will continue their lives as normal, unless they're listening to this beautiful podcast where we speak truth to power.
Sorry, it was the Journal of Hepatology, a European journal. It wasn't through Cell.
Ooh, very European.
Very European.
Yeah, man.
So please, everyone, avoid taking Pfizer at all costs. Avoid taking mRNA vaccines. There are other. If you want to take a first generation vaccine, take a protein vaccine. They still have Novavax. They still have other ones on the market. I believe they have more than one. For fuck's sake, take AZ even with its risk factors. Like, there are some clear questions about the mRNA vaccines now that nobody is willing to address in the media.
Do your own research, folks.
Do your own research, please.
Talk to your doctor. I think, yeah, but actually do research, like in scientific journals. Don't like go to InfoWars or something.
Well, that's the problem when you go to news, because they will always cherry pick, and I do the same thing, honestly.
Yeah.
They'll cherry pick the pieces of the study that they want to repeat, and everything else gets ignored. And that will just kind of repeat what you want to hear. It's not going to get you a full picture. So yeah, I would recommend that people do that, and I know people won't. So,
well,
which is why we're in the situation we're in now.
We got to at least encourage it.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see.
They're hard to read. I mean, they're hard to interpret too for a lot of people.
For sure, and a lot of people don't have time. They're busy, and yeah, it's easier just to
Let Anthony Fauci tell you which one is good.
It's better just to listen to unelected officials.
Unelected deep state bureaucrats. Oh, speaking of, that was another story. Is that fucking? It's getting a lot of attention, but I think it's worth talking about. Is that fucking Florida, like the Florida thing where they banned all those math books?
Oh yeah, yeah. I heard different things about it, but I didn't look into it that much. But
Without talking about the specifics of the bill itself, just talking in a general sense. If you are such a fucking snowflake that you want to like keep your child from being exposed to talking or understanding or hearing about any social issue until the day that they turn 18 and can leave your fucking house, your child is going to be a scarred, like unexposed, basically like a target for scams, a target for manipulation, a target for lies, and they're going to be the exact epitome of the snowflakes that conservatives rant about. They ranted for years about this, like, safe spaces and stuff like that, and now that's exactly what they're trying to create in the classroom, is safe spaces where nobody's allowed to talk about social issues to children except for parents. And parents are not going to do it either because they're not interested in these things.
No.
So when children come out, when children turn 18 and people start talking about things like race or culture or words that they've never heard before because they're no longer allowed to even use them in math textbooks, those kids are going to be fucked.
Well, yeah, but I mean it's always it's always projection, and two,
Well, explain that.
They usually scream loudest about things that they're actually doing themselves, which is, like you were saying, creating their own safe spaces. The thing is that they're not against safe spaces; they're against like leftist, quote unquote, safe spaces.
Well, I'm against any safe spaces. I want the whole world to be fucking Somalia, very dangerous and filled with nasty ideas that you have to protect yourself from. You should wear headphones at all times.
I do think, got my Bose noise canceling headphones. We're not sponsored by Bose.
And carry a shotgun in case anyone looks at you funny, because under the Stand Your Ground laws, you are legally obligated to murder them.
Yeah, you have to.
Please read the law yourself, folks. Do your own research. Don't take my word for it.
It is, I mean, as I always say, I think education should be left up to educators. It's a very controversial opinion, but that's how I feel about it.
I totally agree, especially if you're going to send your kid to a public school. Like, if you're going to send your kid to a school, if you're so concerned, then homeschool your kids. Like, well, let's be real.
People, I think there might be. I don't know about the numbers, but I assume that there probably will be some rise in homeschooling. But we'll see.
Right, if you want to raise like a crop of 18-year-old asexual virgins, that's the prerogative of conservatives. If that's really what they want for America, but
don't malign asexual people. All right.
I'm not maligning it. I'm saying if that's what they want, which I know the answer to that, and the answer is they want the opposite.
Of course they
want a bunch of Alex Jones running out there.
Yeah, exactly. They want virulent men.
People that like to fight, that like to food.
Like to eat, like to fight, like to have children.
Oh yeah, have children. That's the word you use.
The other one is a bunch of little 18-year-old rotund red-faced men that really enjoy their tactical bath.
What is a tactical bath?
That's one of the products that Alex Jones peddles on his show. Ever since I've been using tactical bath, I'm essentially bulletproof, folks, which is why I've been in Florida so much.
It's like an anti-mosquito bubble bath.
An anti-malarial cream.
So what is it?
I don't even know. I'm sure what it really is just like a bunch of nonsense powder that you put in your bath, so big strong men can have their bubble bath. I don't know. All his products are fraudulent.
Desiccated virgin semen.
It was like a couple years ago when they found out like a bunch of his powders had like high levels of like heavy metals in them.
Oh yeah, Enzyte. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah, same thing. He just filed for, well, I guess his company just filed for bankruptcy, which is pretty funny. He's a weird dude. I've been listening to a podcast recently that is a podcast going over his show. They just talk about all the
Does
crazy
he have a
things he
podcast?
says.
I'd rather listen to him probably than Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is a twat. His podcast is also terrible.
That sounds terrible. I would never listen to Steve Bannon. But
I just wanted to hear what he had to say, and he doesn't have to say anything.
no. But Jones is also like a psychopath who just constantly talks out his ass. Like doesn't you can tell sometimes like callers will call in and ask him questions, and he has no idea what they're talking about. They'll be
Alex
like,
Jones?
Yeah.
I mean, he's like a serious alcoholic. I think that he probably is not super cogent anymore.
He's also just a snake oil salesman. He just wants people to be outraged, so they'll keep sending him money. But he's
what
always
does he want from us?
this little bird.
Yeah, it's the same one.
I don't know. He always kind of walks around here, but he's curious. I think he wants some food or something.
Don't misgender it.
It's curious. I don't know. Birds make me nervous though.
Oh, that's one thing I wanted to talk about.
Birds?
No, we were talking about gender transformation the other day, but is the idea that on one hand the Taiwanese government is like, COVID is not that serious, the cases are not serious, don't worry about it, but we're placing very strict measures in place that need to be enforced. One of them being the vaccine mandates. So if they will willingly accept that the vaccines do not prevent symptomatic infection, which means do not prevent the spread of the virus, then
Right.
them enforcing those vaccine mandates is essentially saying we are enforcing a mandate on you because it's for the good of your own health, not to protect other people, because we know what's best for you. So my question is, why don't they ban? So now you have to have 3 vaccines to go to a bar. Why not prevent diabetics from going to bars? Why not prevent people over 60 from going to bars? And let's just be real. Like, if it's dangerous for your health, then the government is preventing you from taking risks. That's the only justification they have. What I think the real justification is they spend all this fucking taxpayer money on all these vaccines, and they want to pretend like people are actually taking the vaccines when nobody's interested in taking more bullshit Pfizers that don't work.
I think part of it is that they want to keep hospitalizations down, but I
Again,
think
there's
that would
no
be
clinical evidence.
I know, but I think that would be their argument. I mean,
That would be their argument, not based on science, because again, there is no double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical evidence that those vaccines have any efficacy against Omicron. Period.
yep.
It is all made up. It is all conjecture at this point. There is some observational data, just like those other observational studies that also show that Omicron is 11% effective in children. Sorry, that Pfizer is 11% effective at preventing Omicron in children. They're all observational at this point. We're all speculating. So that's
Dr.
a guess
Fauci
of
will
this.
make sure that Omicron is much more powerful in the children soon.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past him.
Well,
The Chinese media, by the way, lately is basically saying that in capitalist countries, they're calling it out. They're like, the governments here don't prefer that Omicron stays here, that Pfizer stays permanently, so they continue to make money off of it. They're basically just calling it for what it is. And I don't think they're deliberately doing that.
no, I think they would.
But I think that the elites don't really care about getting rid of COVID as much as they care about their own limited personal self-interest.
Yes, I would say if they could snap their fingers and make it go away, they would, because it would get us actually back to normal and probably help
Except
a lot
for
of
the Pfizer
economies.
CEO.
But yeah, that's the thing, is if it sticks around, they can still make money off of it. So I mean, it makes sense.
From what I heard is because of like and I don't know, this is just like anecdotal, but from some of my family in the United States, because all these waves kept going on and people were indoors for so long, that now it's almost impossible to like get into a restaurant. That places are so crowded, these service industries are making so much fucking money, like they're making money hand over foot right now. It's uncontrolled amounts of money. They basically, like, if you want to go to like a breakfast restaurant, like get brunch, you have to call in like 2-3 weeks in advance in like a tiny town like where my mom lives.
Everyone's back out to brunch. Well, that sounds about right. The interesting thing will be to see what happens
With the next strain?
Well, in Taiwan, but yes, of course, with that as well, because it seems like some of the local governments are going to try to start enforcing increased lockdowns because the central government is refusing.
Yeah, I know we disagree about this, but I think the DPP is going to suffer long term for this. I think this is going to be
They
the
might.
generational challenge where they're just seen as, they're basically just corrupt. That they had everything under control. We spent 2.5 years sacrificing, and then the government's like, you know what? Fuck all our sacrifices. Fuck everything we did. That's it. We're done. Let it ride.
Maybe. I think it's possible, but I think there's still a lot of variables.
There are a lot of variables. I
don't-
totally agree
I don't
with
know
you.
I don't know where people are going to go.
I think what I said before still stands, that a lot of people will just stay at home, and I think that that's enough to I'm not saying crush the DPP, but basically like right now they don't even think of it as competitive because they have such a high margin between them and the next two parties that they're overly confident, which is I think one of the reasons why they did what they did, because they think that they're untouchable, and I think that they're mistaken in that. I think if their base stays home, which they very well might, they're, even if they don't lose, they're no longer untouchable. And if the opposition parties can put out good candidates and make good arguments, which they certainly have the rhetorical room to do that, and I don't think the KMT does, but I think at least the TPP, and I hate the TPP, I'll state that. The TPP could make the argument that Taiwan basically betrayed it, not the Taiwan, the DPP basically betrayed its electorate and betrayed the Taiwanese people for short-term interests. And I think if they make that argument clearly enough, they could really put a big dent in the DPP. If not remove them from power in a lot of places. And the DPP lost a lot of local elections last time. They don't have incumbencies here, by the way, in a lot of these places.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. As we get closer to the local elections in November, it will be interesting to see what
they control the majority of the local governments, as far as I know, because the local elections were held in 2018 when the DPP was at historic lows.
You're saying the DPP controls most local?
No, the KMT does.
Well, the KMT, yeah, they have the majority of mayoral seats for sure. But what I'm saying is, yeah, as it gets closer, I'll be interested to see what these candidates' arguments are, because the KMT, like you said, I don't know that they have much room to argue for things, but the TPP could say like, oh, I put in extra mandates as mayor and actually tried to stem the spread. But I don't know, he's just combative he's kind of a reactionary with the central government. So
yeah, but he's not even a candidate right now.
But but he might be in 2024. But yeah, but he will be running candidates at the end of this year.
But when people are choosing, I think with local elections, I think people kind of, a lot of times they just go down party line. They don't really do a lot of research behind this. And by the way, I think that this is going to be a historically low turnout, because if COVID is still an issue, a lot of people aren't going to be willing, because Taiwan, unlike most other countries in the world, does not have mail-in voting, does not have absentee voting, does not have remote voting. You got to stand in line for hours and hours, and a lot of people are just going to not do that. Yeah, except the KMT, who number one doesn't fucking care about COVID.
Yeah.
And DPP, who also doesn't really care about COVID. The DPP, I think, at least their constituency is like the most kind of, I would say, careful about this, because they have supported the DPP's efforts and their rhetorical messaging over the last couple of years that COVID is a serious thing and we need to take lots of steps to control it, which has just been thrown out the window in the last 2 weeks. That's sunk in, and I think not only will they fear COVID, but they will not be super motivated to vote for the party that a lot of people believe stabbed them in the fucking back.
I tend to agree that it's definitely a possibility. I'll be interested to see what the rhetoric is like.
I don't know, but that's my point, is I don't know how much rhetoric there will be. This isn't like, it's not like there are going to be debates that are like widely viewed. It's not like people are going to really follow these elections closely. Local elections are kind of sloppy second-tier affairs. A lot of people are just going to tune out, and when election day comes, they're just going to, I think a lot of them are not even going to vote. And the ones that do vote are not going to be DPP. Maybe the hardcore ones, but not like middling DPP people, which is a lot of their electorate. Who's like, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a serious possibility. You want to know how many COVID cases today?
Oh, yeah. It's after 2. How many?
You want to take
over
a guess?
5K. Great.
5,092.
5,090. Just over 5K.
Yeah, just over. Yeah, it's been going up every day.
How many deaths?
0 deaths. I think
the death lag.
I think Omicron. I mean, there was like a 2-year-old kid that died the other day, but and an 80-year-old person. But yeah, I mean, I hope that with the still like relatively low cases that people are able to get treatment that they need. But yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. Like if you have this giant jump in cases, people are going to get sick and die. I hope people don't, but I mean, it's just we've seen the evidence throughout the world for the last 2 years. Like, we know what's coming.
Yeah, well, everyone knows that except for Chen Shizhong, apparently, and Tsai Ing-wen, who are both completely denying it. They're like, this isn't learning to live with COVID.
I like how it was very serious until they decided to just let it outbreak, and now every even just regular people I hear all the time, it's always, well, it's 99.4% of the cases are very low, are whatever, like asymptomatic or
That was the same thing with
very
the original
unserious.
COVID, by the way. Like, the death rate for the original COVID was like 0.5%.
It's
So-
yeah, overall it's low, but that still means, like, 100,000 people will die. Like this, and the other thing is that people are like, oh, it's like getting better in America, right? I had someone tell me that the other day. They're like, oh, they're not having any deaths, right? I'm like, it's still 1,000 people a day dying.
Right
like,
now it's about 500. If you trust the CDC.
well, first of all, yeah, I don't trust their numbers. I'm sure well over 1 million people have died. But the other thing is that I looked yesterday. Well, it was a number from 2 days ago. 750 something people died. So it's like, yeah, you can call it mild and you can say all these things, but Taiwan has a very old population, and there are a number of immunocompromised people. People are going to start dying, and
you don't have to justify it, man. What this is because the whole point of their argument for years is protecting the weak,
Right.
protecting the old. And now they're like, you know what? It's just not our priority anymore. They can say whatever they want. Oh, it's not number one, it's not true that Omicron is not dangerous, is not deadly. And number two, the argument that because we have vaccines, it's not a threat anymore is also a bullshit argument, as everyone already fucking knows. Like,
Yeah.
the vaccines are basically a placebo at this point.
I don't know if I'd go that
There's
far.
no
but
there's no fucking
I would
clinical
just-
evidence
yeah, I would just-
whatsoever
I
that
would
they
just
work
say
against
there's-
Omicron.
I
I
would
will
say there's
repeat
no,
that.
no data. Yeah.
Which means that it's placebo. It's the same as fucking ivermectin.
well,
Like,
we don't know is what I would say. But,
yeah, we don't know about ivermectin either. It's the same as
well, we do know. There was just a recent study about ivermectin. It says it doesn't work, but anyway. But
What was it? Double-blind placebo controlled.
I believe so. Yes, I believe so. I have to go back and look at the data.
Okay, fine. Then let's just make up another cigarettes. The
Yeah.
effectiveness of cigarettes against COVID or Chinese medicine.
Yeah, TCM, baby. Gonna go down to the local shop and get me some TCM.
They're just bullshit arguments. So if people want to make the argument that we've collectively decided that the old and the weak and the vulnerable are not important, that we're just going to collectively lower the human life expectancy by a few years because we want to keep airlines open and we could not stand to fucking shut down the world for even 2 weeks at a time, then make that argument. Then just fucking be a man.
Yeah, that's-
be a strong woman.
A strong woman.
A strong whatever. Be a strong person. Okay. I don't want to gender it.
I just thought of South Park when you said strong woman.
That's why I said it.
Vice Principal, strong woman.
What's the principal's
PC
name?
principal.
Oh yeah, PC. He doesn't have a name. It's just like an
His
80s
name
J.
is just PC Principal. Yeah.
You guys need to take this super seriously. I can't do his voice.
I haven't watched that show in so long. I forget.
You were just watching it. You said.
I watched. That was like a month and a half ago.
Oh, so long.
A long time ago. I've already forgotten. Yeah, that's my thing. I keep telling people is like I have people that I occasionally
I've got friends who've had COVID.
I occasionally bicker with online because they'll send me something about they're doing some new COVID policy and this is why I'm like pissed off about it, and I just always what we always get to is I say if you are okay with 1 to 2% of the population dying so you can wear your mask slightly less, then just say that. But don't like give me this bullshit. It's about freedom and democracy because it's fucking not. It's about airline profits and you're being slightly more comfortable on a bus. Like, otherwise, just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting argument that leftists were making about this, like, comfort for masks. That is a big fly for
Yeah.
masks. Basically, the idea is that public health, that public safety is not as important as my personal right to choose whether to wear a mask or not. And I could make the same fucking argument for carrying handguns on the airplanes. Like, you could say,
Hell yeah. Wild West, baby.
like, if leftists really want to make that claim, let's see how far you can take that argument. That
You can take it a long
your
ways.
personal feelings of like comfort that I don't have a fucking like not 50 caliber. Let's
They don't have my M249 saw with me at all
Fine.
times.
fine, that I can't bring a rocket launcher with me, that I can't bring a grenade, that I can't even bring fireworks. Let's just keep it modest. That I can't bring fireworks with me on an airplane at any given time is for your personal safety.
Well, the only way I feel safe on a plane is if I have a live grenade with the pin already pulled. Otherwise, I just feel a little unnerved. So
Yeah,
I think we should push for
if
that.
my personal freedom supersedes other people's public order, public safety, public health, then let's just bring guns back on airplanes. Let's just,
Fuck yeah, bud.
for fuck's sake. I mean, the only way to stop a bad guy with COVID is a good guy with a gun. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I also like how
Did you see that Mike Tyson, by the way?
I heard about it. I
I
didn't
saw
see
everyone being like, "Well, the guy that was asking Mike Tyson very rudely to keep taking selfies before he demolished his fucking facial structure was actually a convicted criminal,
Oh,
so he deserved
I
it."
love those arguments. I love those post facto arguments, as if Mike Tyson did a fucking criminal background check on this guy before he decided to beat the shit out of him. Like, give me a fucking break.
Yeah, Mike
man.
Tyson is like, I don't know. I never feel bad for celebrities.
What happened? I just know that he beat up some guy on a plane. That's all I know.
The guy, well, from what I heard, and I shouldn't have looked into this at all. I
No,
don't
you
care about
shouldn't.
Mike Tyson.
Ignore it. Yeah.
We shouldn't talk about it now.
Well, it's okay. We already started. I
He
did.
took a selfie with the guy, and then
Uh-huh.
he been like, "Hey man, why don't you arm wrestle?" I don't know what happened. He just
Okay.
kept talking to him.
He's
He
pestering
pissed him
him.
off, so Mike Tyson turned around and started like,
wailing on him.
yeah, just on his face, no less.
Yeah, I heard he beat him pretty badly, but that's about all I heard.
And I heard the guy was drunk too.
He was also recently on Joe Rogan's podcast, which I started listening to, and I realized he was way too high, and I turned it off after like 10 minutes.
That dude obviously like has probably CTE and like some serious emotional anger issues that
Well,
need to be
yeah.
treated by a court licensed professional. And of course, because he has apparently enough money to fight the case, but not enough not to fly and coach, he's he's gonna get off this fucking case. It's
Mike-
gonna be no big deal.
Mike Tyson is a man of the people.
Yeah, that's why you're flying in coach, Mike Tyson.
He's yeah, I mean, amazing boxer. Obviously has some anger management issues. I mean,
As do most fighters with E. CTE.
I think even with pre-CTE he had some issues. But yeah, that doesn't help. And that's how you get people like Chris Benoit
Or Joe Rogan, fuck.
or Joe Rogan. Yeah, that's true.
I'm a moron, guys. I'm just gonna tell the fucking 10 million American people who eat, sleep, live, drink, and breathe everything I fucking say is human fact. That masks don't work, that COVID isn't real, and that I'm a leftist.
Yeah, exactly.
Except I hate leftists.
Antifa. So
I hate woke leftism. Okay, that's
yeah.
what I mean to say.
that's why I support real leftists like Tulsi Gabbard.
Talk about a fucking Russian plan. Holy shit, that woman is a traitor to our country.
Oh my goodness, man! It's so bad. It's so bad.
She's
I-
something else.
I've been glad to. The one thing that has been positive about, like, I guess, yeah, one of the positive things that has come out of this horrible Russian invasion. Not to say like anything good comes out of it, but like,
She's a veteran, Jordan.
well, a lot of people are getting.
She served as medical staff in an air-conditioned base in Kuwait, fighting venereal disease for 2 whole years. She could have caught one of those diseases.
Well, someone had to look after Biden's son.
Oh my God.
Well, but a lot of like people have kind of been exposed, which I think has been nice to see, because I've seen a lot of people who were like flirt with like the
Flirting with Tulsi Gabbard is a bad move.
Hopefully not. That's a bad idea. Don't do that.
She may have caught one of those diseases.
Abort.
Jesus, abortion is illegal.
Only
In most states.
now in like a few states.
Well, you can be sued for it in the other states, so even if you do it in California.
I don't know if that's true, but anyway. But a lot of like these news that like a lot of like leftists, again to use a term that means nothing, like the gray zone. These kinds. Oh, it's horrible, like dictator propaganda. But people have like been like finding out that they're all just.
Who's the they?
I mean, in this case, some of these like media organizations are just basically they're anti-imperialist. So insofar as like it brushes up against American imperialism, not when it comes to like Russia, China, any of these other like imperialist states.
talking about Jacobin.
Well,
I don't know what Jacobin is.
A little bit about them.
just
I haven't
know
been
about
following
them
them
in the
as
French
much.
Revolution.
The Marie Antoinette podcast.
Yes. Welcome to the Marie Antoinette podcast, where we always eat cake.
Nah, we're
Yeah, it's a bad name for a podcast.
We're
I'm just
definitely
gonna talk shit.
We're definitely sans culottes, my brother.
What? Are you using French on me?
Je ne sais pas.
What did you say?
I don't know. I don't speak French, man.
I know nothing about that.
Parlez-vous français?
That's all I know.
What did you say?
What?
Sans culottes.
Sans culottes was during the French Revolution.
But what is it? I don't know that
It's
term.
without culottes, which are like the
sans.
breeches. Yeah. I just said it in an American way where we pronounce our S's because we're not afraid of the truth.
Do you pronounce the S? I don't speak French. I don't speak French.
I don't speak that baguette language. Yeah, I don't speak French either.
Good night, folks.
You got anything else?
No. Are we going to talk about the French debate? That's probably the one to talk about before we do the Australian one, but that's like 3 hours long.
We can watch it on 2 times speed.
Yeah, we could.
No, maybe 1.25.
Well, maybe 1.75.
It's pretty fast.
1.5.
0.75.
So it'll be 5 hours.
Yeah, we probably should.
I need to eat first. I haven't eaten yet today.
All right, folks. Well, we're thinking about watching some of the debates. They'll be up on the podcast feed, whichever ones we actually end up watching, and over on the YouTube as well. So
The French one is more
check that
urgent than the
out.
Australian one because it's like the runoff is happening like a week. I think the Australian one we've got a bit more time.
Okay.
The Australian one is shorter. I prefer to do the shorter one, but in terms of time restraint, I think we could wait for the Australian one.
All right. Sounds good to me. Go check out the website, folks. Follow us on all the social medias. Of course, you can always subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/FreeChinaPost. But definitely go check out the website, FreeChinaPost.com. Share us with your buds. We love you. We'll talk to you soon. FCP 最大